marijuana, even though mandatory death penalties are, of course, unconstitutional.
Well, I'm not sure under what circumstances I said that, but I don't think that sounds like something that would normally say. We're glad to look at it, but
Would you say that's not your view today?
it is not my view today.
Thank you very much.
I perked up when he started talking about federalism. And of course, everything Senator Leahy said was interesting, but the federalism stuff is particularly interesting. Yes, exactly. I appreciated that too. That was great. Federalism is an issue that's near and dear to many of us, and I know it's important to you. The notion that our federal government possesses powers that James Madison described as few and defined, those reserved to the states are numerous and indefinite. We were supposed to be a different legislative body. Our federal government was always intended as a limited purpose national government, not a general purpose national government, one possessing complete police powers. We've seen a slow but steady drift over the last 80 years away from this principle of federalism, such that powers exercised at the federal level today could no longer be described as few and defined, but more appropriately described as numerous and indefinite. And in light of the supremacy clause in the Constitution, any powers we do exercise through the federal government are, by definition, replaced from the states. In other words, when our action conflicts with state action, it's our action that prevails in light of the supremacy clause. It's one of the reasons why federalism needs to be looked out for so carefully. One of the reasons why a view that I think you and I both share is that U.S. government officials in all three branches of government, whether they wear a black robe or not, are expected, when they swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, to look out for basic structural protections in the Constitution, like federalism, so that we don't have an excessive accumulation of power in the hands of the few. So the Founding Fathers set up this system in which we have these structural protections. We have the vertical protection we call federalism, which we've just described, and the horizontal protection we call separation of powers. It says within the federal government, in order to protect us against the risks associated with the excessive accumulation of power in the hands of the few, we're going to have one branch that makes the laws, another branch that enforces the laws, and a third branch that interprets the laws. As long as we keep each branch within the same lane, the people are protected from what happens when one person or a group of people gets too powerful. But over the last 80 years, just as we've seen a deterioration of federalism, we've also seen a deterioration of separation of powers. You have an interesting set of circumstances with our laws, our controlled substances laws concerning marijuana, in that for the first time in a very long time, you've seen some attention paid to federalism, but in the limited area associated with marijuana. In other words, there are federal laws prohibiting the use of marijuana, the sale of marijuana, the production of marijuana, that apply regardless of whether a state has independently criminalized that drug, as every state until recently had. Then you had some states coming along and decriminalizing it, sometimes in the medical context, other times in a broader context. The response by the Department of Justice during the Obama administration has been interesting, and it's been different than it has in other areas. They've been slow to recognize principles of federalism elsewhere. They chose to recognize it here. My question to you is, did the way they respond to that federalism concern run afoul of separation of powers? Did the department's approach to this issue that they identified as a federalism issue contravene the understanding that we are the lawmaking body, the executive branch is the law enforcing body?
Well, I'm not sure I fully understand the point of your question, but